having that American value and that British Singaporean value as well as the Thai value, it was definitely a confusion for me. Education there is a little bit more Asian style, more, strict.
Why do you think Thais prefer, getting out of Thailand and just working overseas? Get out of Thailand and go to like UK, Australia, Canada, US? You don't have to answer that, you're cool. So in this video, I interview my friend Win. Win is in his 20s. He's a Gen Z Thai, educated in the Bangkok International School System. He's also been educated abroad in the United States. But we're gonna sit down with Win and we're gonna ask him about his experiences going to international schools, why so many international school kids wanna leave Thailand, study and work abroad to pursue higher education. Why not stay in Thailand? Is it for economic reasons, or is it for lifestyle reasons, or a combination of both or more? Let's find out. All right, so Win, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us.
My pleasure.
And I thought your experience, or your upbringing here in Thailand, from my understanding, is that from our mutual friend that we met through, you kind of have this interesting international Thai upbringing here in Bangkok, where you went to international schools here, and then you lived in the States for a little bit, and then now you're back in Bangkok, and now you're kind of having future plans of heading back to the States. And if you don't mind telling us, the audience of your name, how old you are, and your upbringing.
Yeah. So my name is Win. I'm currently 24 years old, born in Chicago, grew up in Thailand, lived here for almost 20 years. Went to international school here. Both parents are Thai, so very Thai. Yeah.
So you were born in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then what age did you move back to Thailand?
It's honestly since like 1 year old, very, very young. But then I went to college in Indiana, but then I still have family in Chicago, so I would go back every now and then, every 2-3 weeks, every month maybe. So I do know Chicago quite a bit now. But my dad, primarily, he grew up in Chicago. He moved to the U.S. when he was like 3 years old, and grew up there ever since. Went to school, high school, worked there for a bit as well. So he would also give me some experiences from Chicago and tell me of his upbringing and whatnot.
So your father is quite international himself, with, I'm assuming, dual passports as well.
Yeah. He's not a dual passport, but he's like a resident, yeah.
What made him decide to uproot and move the family back to Bangkok when you were 1 year old?
Well, from my recollection, I'm not my father, obviously, but he said that in around 1992, the economy wasn't doing very well in the U.S., and there was, it was booming. Thailand was booming. It was about to be the fifth tiger. So if you look at the fifth tiger, I believe there's, correct me if I'm wrong, Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, and Hong Kong,
and Singapore,
correct. Japan or something like that. Yeah, and Thailand was running up to be the fifth tiger. There was a fourth tiger.
Yeah.
But then unfortunately that did not really happen. Bangkok, for better or worse, is now a more of like a tourism. Thailand rather is more of a tourism country, which is good too to an extent, right? Yeah. But in terms of like finance and business opportunities, if I were to ask him did he regret moving to Bangkok, I would say no, he probably didn't regret it, but it's probably not what he expected in terms of finance and marketing.
So he expected something big, but instead he had to pivot.
Right, he was expecting, I guess, Thailand being similar to like Hong Kong or Singapore, because he was a stockbroker, he was a research analyst and sales. He was in the security market industry for a while.
Okay, so it sounded like your family did pretty well.
Yeah, I think we did. We had our ups and downs, of course, but I think overall average, we do great on a bell curve. I think we did pretty well. Yeah.
Now you grew up going to international schools.
Yeah. So when I was, I think 2 years old, I was at a Thai school actually for a couple months, and then I guess I don't remember. I was super young. I was like I didn't really feel that it was resonating with me in terms of how I communicated back at home. We spoke English a little bit. We spoke Thai as well, and like the mindset was a little bit different. So I remember my dad actually put me into an international school, I'm not gonna say what school, but yeah, it was like a new school at the time. Was there for a couple years and then moved again to another international school. And then around grade 5, grade 6, I moved to the States, lived in Nevada and Las Vegas actually, and lived in California, Taft, California as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then from then, what age did you move back to Bangkok? Because you went to international school in Bangkok, or
Yeah.
during
Middle school, high
middle
school.
school and high school.
Yeah. I think it was like grade 4 to 5. I moved back. I mean, grade 3 to 4.5. Around there, moved like in between terms back to Bangkok. So it was there, California for a year, Nevada for like 6 months, and then moved back to Bangkok in yeah, I think around 12, moved back to Bangkok. Yeah.
What was your experiences like going to international schools here in Bangkok? I've always been very curious about that whole experience.
That's a really good question. I think my experience is quite different because I went to different types of international schools. So if you look at like the tier, you know, you have the big three, you know, the ISB, NIST, and Bangkok Patna. Like these are very old international schools. It was here like almost 50 years ago since the United Nations. But I went to a different tier, like a newer. So I think my experience is quite different in the sense that I went to a Singaporean style curriculum school in my middle school and high school. So the education there is a little bit more Asian style, more, you know, strict. But then we also have that British aspect as well, because we did also do the Singaporean British curriculum. So I would say, just based on my upbringing with my dad growing up in Chicago with my entire family now living in the US, we're all US citizens. Having that American value and that British Singaporean value as well as the Thai value, it was definitely a confusion for me in terms of how I behaved. But just to answer your question, I would say it was unique. I wouldn't say it was good, I wouldn't say it was bad, it was unique.
What made it so unique? I mean, were there certain situations where you felt like you were acting too Western in a Thai situation, and then vice versa, or you were acting too American around a British system?
Yeah, for sure. So like this school that I went to, it's a Singaporean school. So in terms of the curriculum, there isn't really that much of like movement in terms of subject choices. So for example, if we did A-levels, right? So that you have to pick specific subjects for you to go to university. So each subject will dictate what major you're going to do in university, right? And you know, in the British curriculum or the Singaporean curriculum, you kind of have to choose in your first year. So you have to know, I want to be an engineer, so I'm going to have to take these kind of engineer math intensive courses. I want to be a doctor, so I have to do, you know, more intensive courses. But if I want to go into the social science field, I have to take this particular courses. In my school, however, there were only pretty much STEM-based subjects. And granted, I did economics, which is more of like STEM, but also like social science mix between that. And there weren't really that much subject choices in my school. And there was a lot of like, I guess, stigma in terms of kids taking, or students taking non-STEM based. So you'll get, you know, some sort of stigma from your peers, and honestly, sometimes the teachers too. But I would argue that mindset really challenged me in terms of my growth as a person, because, you know, if you're a student in an international school and you're pretty much stigmatized in that school, you're either going to want to prove your peers and your students wrong, or it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that, okay, I'm just going to be what the stigma tells me. You know, I'm going to be like, because in my school, it's like, if you're doing the arts, if you're doing social science, you might as well go to trade school, stuff like that, right? And obviously, if you're from an American culture where meritocracy and this, like, you know, the idea of like your grades don't always define you, that conflicted with the culture in my school. Because ever since young, my dad always taught me that if you put your mind into something, you know, you can make it, and, you know, you can fail, just fail, but learn from your mistakes, and then, you know, eventually you're gonna make it. And that's how I think America was built to an extent. before, back in the day. Like, I'm not saying it's great right now, but I'm saying like that was the mentality I grew up with, and my school at the time, my high school, didn't really align with that, and there was that sort of conflict. But I definitely learned to overcome it.
I feel like your father wasn't your stereotypical Asian father. I felt like he was, from what you were saying, that he was very supportive, and whatever art you decided, or whatever field you decide to pursue, whether it's non-STEM or STEM, he would always push you towards, going 100%, compared to some of your peers' parents, where if they went focused on more of the creative non-STEM fields, they would be stigmatized.
For sure, yeah. I mean, definitely my high school still had an impact towards what I did for university. So I did economics, which isn't quite engineering or doctor, but it's still like very math intensive. But I do love the economy. But if I didn't go to that school, I'd probably end up doing social science or some psychology or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I am grateful to an extent that I'm able to balance and just get the influence, and that stigma kind of like pressured me to take a more STEM-based subject, STEM-based approach. So just to answer your question, if your audience are like, wondering, should you send your kids to an international school? I think the school itself will definitely have an impact towards your child's behavior, but at the end of the day, it's the family. So how the kid is influenced is not going to be as big as how much the family puts in. So yeah, that's yeah. I guess if you're to answer your question, is my dad a tiger dad, a tiger parent? I would say no, more like 50-50.
More like 50. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm doing this creative work. I'm working for a big YouTuber right now. Is he happy about it? 50-50.
Yeah.
He'd rather see me as a consultant in Chicago, which I got offers to out of college, but I'm like, I'm still young. I want to pursue this. So he wasn't super happy, but he's like accepting it now.
He's accepting that he just has to let you do your thing.
For a while, yeah.
So with your peers, and all your friends graduating from international school here in Bangkok, and then from what you just mentioned, you went over to the United States, over in Indiana, to go to college.
Yeah.
How is the contrast like from going to school in Thailand versus going to school in the States? And did a lot of your peers wanted to do the same thing, where they wanted to study and get out of Thailand and go to like UK, Australia, Canada, US?
For university, after
for university, and I guess afterwards, for work.
Yeah, I mean, with the economic climate right now over in the UK and also the US, they're having trouble finding jobs or particular visas and stuff. But we don't have to get into that. But if you're asking me if they want to work in the West for a bit, yes, I would say so, because you just get more income. Granted, cost of living is still high and stuff, but if you were to compare it to Bangkok or Thailand, like you're making money from the West and you're coming back, you're sending money back to to your family and whatnot, it's just definitely worth it, and that's what the majority of my peers are doing.
So, wow, I had the impression that all your peers from international school, their parents are well set, they have their own business, because international school isn't cheap.
Yeah,
But then they're still overseas, and they're sending money back to their parents.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't go to the big three ISB Patna school. So yeah, that's also still an aspect where some of my peers would do that, but more of they would go abroad, work abroad for a couple of years, and get the experience, the management style, how you run your companies and whatnot, and bring it back to their family businesses and kind of teach, their family how to run the business, adopt different management styles, basically.
That's very admirable. That even if it's a mid-tier international school, they're still sending money back to their families and taking good care of them. And then more often, and from what you just said, a lot of them would eventually leave their jobs at the West to come take over the family business. Is that quite common?
A lot of them, yes. Yeah, for sure.
Do you see that with your case, having to come back and take over your family business in the future? You don't have to answer that if you could.
It's definitely a consideration. It's not a 100% plan, because right now I'm like trying everything right now, content creation, working as a videographer with, a big YouTuber. So it's definitely like at the back of my mind, but it's never like, I never told my dad like, okay, 100% this particular year, after this year, I'm gonna come back and take over the business. It's never like that, but it's definitely like a consideration for sure.
Why do you think Thais prefer, getting out of Thailand and just working overseas? There's just much more opportunity compared to the economy over here. Let's say take finance, for example.
Yes, for sure, 100%. Or they would go to Hong Kong or Singapore. Yeah, so in terms of the market size, Hong Kong, Singapore is better.
So somewhere much closer.
Somewhere much closer, or like they just want the American Western culture, they go to New York or London or some sorts, work there for a bit, get the experience, come back, use the experience and apply it to their family business.
Okay, so it's more like a 2 to 3 year stint and then they'll just come back.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, so nothing like 10, 20 years until they retire.
Not the peers that I've talked to, but I'm certainly there are some of those for sure who are thinking to let me immigrate and leave Bangkok and just start my life over in the U.S. or whatever.
Well, because that was definitely much common back in the 80s and the 90s, but I think from what you're telling me, it seems less common where they just only want to stay there for just a few years, and if they don't get a PR or green card or citizenship, then that's all good. They'll come back to their family.
Yeah, I think the majority of Thais who go to international school, even if it's a mid-tier international school, they have a particular amount of wealth and money. So they don't need to leave the country to seek better opportunities, right? My family, however, I wouldn't say we were mid-tier. We were maybe like a little bit lower middle class. My entire family, Thai family, is from Lampang, Chiang Mai, Lampang area, northern Thailand. So had we stayed in Thailand and did not move to the U.S., we probably wouldn't be as successful as now. We probably, like my dad wouldn't be able to send me to international school. I wouldn't be able to speak English or Mandarin, or wouldn't be as global minded, I guess. But we would have been decent. I wouldn't say we'll be struggling, but we'll be decent. But if you were to ask me, was it the right move at that time to move to the U.S., I would say 100%.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay. I mean, you're a pretty young guy. I mean, you're 24 years old. You're trying like content creation, working at like trying to, and before what we talked about, you had plans on moving to New York to try living in New York for a little bit.
Right, yeah.
What, is there a particular job or that you wanted to do in New York, particular field, like working in finance?
No, not finance. I actually had an agreement with my dad before graduating. Hey dad, I got an offer from this particular firm in Chicago, but I don't think I want to take it because I don't feel like it is the right fit for me. I don't think like when I graduate I should go to work at a 9-to-5 office job.
So what are your plans? You're going to be moving to New York for a bit, specifically?
So I work for the Fung brothers, David and Andrew. So Andrew lives in New York right now, and David currently lives in Bangkok. So the plan is basically to move back, just to go back and forth every 6 months or 3-4 months, and work for them, work for me. Sleep on their couch. Just live and rough it out, just learn everything. And I would say that I'm very privileged to have that opportunity. Having met Andrew and David, and also having a supportive dad who had an agreement to support me for 1 year. So I did make like quite a bit of money as a server in Chicago, so I do have a bit to spend here in Bangkok right now, but I am definitely privileged to have that, to try everything straight out of college. So I'm not gonna lie and say that I'm doing like this rags to riches story or whatever. I'm definitely privileged, and I am aware of that, and I'm just trying to make the best out of it.
I mean, you're a young man, you're in your early 20s. I think it's a good idea that you're going to New York to rough it out and to learn some life skills, to sleep on couches and stuff. Do this while you're young, because I mean, I'm in my late 30s. Like I don't have the energy or the body to withstand that. So I think if anything, just go out there and like work hard and try not to get caught up with too many distractions.
Yeah, no, I mean, and part of the thing is just seeing that just from your story too, and also David's story, just seeing you guys at this age, still hustling, still, trying to create businesses. Like David's trying to do his Tiger Club business. You're, trying to do this content creation. and work, in Bangkok, and I'm just seeing, these guys like, wow, if they have the energy to do this still, maybe not at my capacity in terms of energy, but I'm like, what excuse do I have? Do I have to settle for a 9 to 5 like all my other international school peers? No hate to them, but I just don't want to be another, I guess, statistic or another story where this well-off international school kid works at Goldman Sachs for 5-6 years, comes back, help the family business grow. I just kind of want to make more of an impact, I guess, have a different story. And like I said, I'm privileged to have that, to do that. I'm not saying anyone can do it.
It's a wonderful conclusion. Honestly, that's great. Keep working hard. And I got to say that, for my part, I'm just going to let you know that there's no such thing as a finish line. You just got to keep going until you physically can't keep going or you depart from this earth.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Forrest.
I just want to conclude this interview. Check out Wynn's socials. I'm going to leave it down in the description down below. Any lasting words that you would like to say before we conclude this interview?
If you guys come over and look at my channel, I talk a lot about economics. My channel name is Winnonomics. So a lot of economics, sociology, culture stuff. I'll say I'm still learning. I don't have all the answers, so I'm more than willing to have my mind changed. So I did a video titling Is Thailand a Third World Country? And I actually got into it a little bit with my dad, discussing the statistics, all the institutional stuff that's happening in Thailand, the great, the bad, stuff like that. So do watch that video and comment. I really appreciate it. And I'm also, like I said, I'm still learning. So yeah.
I actually saw that video. It was actually a very wonderful back and forth dialogue with your father. I'm going to link that video into the description down below. Guys, definitely check it out. It's actually some good substance, a good debate, good topic.
Thank you.
I think it was about close to a 30-minute video. I watched all of it. I thought it was fantastic.
Wow. Thank you so much, Forrest.
Well, appreciate it.
Yeah,
it,
man.
Win.
Thank you so much,
Thank
man.
you so much.
Yeah.
Best of luck to you. Honestly, just keep hustling. There's no finish line.
Yeah, eventually I would love to have you on my channel too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
cool.
Thank you.
man.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.